What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel. Welcome back into the Pittsburgh Pirates franchise on MLB The Show 22 on Next Gen. In today's video, we have a lot to catch you guys up on. A couple of moves with the team, as well as a draft class. I can't help myself. When I get to this point in the season, whenever I start to get towards the month of June, and I know that the draft is coming up, I can't help it but diving into the scouting system and jumping into the draft class as quickly as I can to find out who we're going to be picking and who's going to be coming to the team in the future. So let's go ahead and recap everything that has happened so far. First, taking a look at our record, and then taking a look at the calendar. We are still sitting on top of the division with a pretty healthy lead at 39-17. We actually did pretty well in the month of May, considering a lot of tough opponents that we had coming up against us. So 39-17 is pretty phenomenal, all things considered. The Cubs are sitting at 29-26, the Cardinals at 28-27, the Brewers at 24-32, and the Reds at 23-34. It's really odd to see the way that the division is shaking out right now. Nobody has really been able to compete in any sense of the imagination in our division right now, and I don't think they're going to be able to. The teams in our division just aren't very good at the moment. When we look at the calendar and we head back to May, there are some pretty important series that we ended up finishing up here. So we started off with that tough series against the San Diego Padres, which we ended up getting 3 games out of, 3 wins out of. And then we faced off against Toronto. The Blue Jays are always going to be one of the toughest teams in the league, and they showed that against us, getting 2 wins. We were able to take the 3rd game in that series, but you can see the difference in our record. They're sitting at 42-15. They are one of, if not the best team in the league, and we're sitting at 39-17, and we were able to compete in these games a little bit, hoping to continue to develop and get to a point where if we meet them in the World Series or something like that, we would be able to do a little bit better. And then we move on to another series against San Diego. We were looking to do better this time, going with the 3-game sweep. We knew that we could compete against them based on the 3 games we won against them in the first series, and we knew that they've been struggling with a 20-35 record, so we were able to come away with that 3-game series sweep. We got 3 out of 4 against Miami. Then we faced off against Milwaukee, who did take 2 games against us. They did show some life in that series. We split with Tampa Bay in a 2-game series. Again, we split with Cincinnati in a 4-game series. They showed some life as well. We know those division games are always pretty tough. And then we were able to beat the Dodgers in this series 2-1, and this was right before the draft. I was really impressed by this 12-9 win that we were able to do, because they were putting up a lot of runs. They put up a lot of runs in the first game of the series, and we were able to come away with a 12-run game against the Dodgers, which is phenomenal. So that just shows what this team is capable of when they're on, and this day they were on, and we were able to finish it off with a 2-1 win in the 3rd game, and that sets us up as one of the best teams right now in the league, especially in the NL. And, you know, that's not to say we don't have tough opponents ahead, but I think that things are looking pretty solid for us, and we may be looking to make a big move at the trade deadline to add somebody to the roster. We'll see. I have some names in mind. If you guys have some names in mind, certainly leave those down in the comment section below. But I want to then go ahead and recap what's gone on with the draft and what's going on with our team and the roster moves that I've decided to make. So this draft was actually a pretty interesting one. Our scouts didn't do us any favors. We did not have a ton to pick from, but we were still able to make something happen. So we were able to get Cameron Castilla, who I feel is one of the best draft picks within this draft class. He has to be. Unfortunately, not A potential, not above a 90, but he is 20 years old. He's coming in as a 73 overall with 87 potential, which is absolutely phenomenal for a player. And you'll see we got a couple of players that can potentially come in and help us very, very soon with the team. And we were able to then, in the 2nd round, pick up Rick Estrella, who's more of a long-term prospect, a buildable prospect, 52 overall with 86 potential, center fielder, somewhat athletic. And then we were able to pick up closing pitcher Garrett White, who is a 23-year-old, 60 overall, 88 potential. So, you know, a little bit on the older end, but I'll take that as a 3rd round pick. You really start to get into a crapshoot in these later rounds. And we were able to pick up a steal in the 4th round, Henry Cordero. I couldn't believe we were able to get this guy. Starting pitching prospect, 22 years old. He's a 71 overall with 83 potential. This is what I was talking about, getting guys that could potentially help us right now or in the very near future. This is a guy that could potentially do that. Coming in as a 71 overall with 83 potential is absolutely crazy. And then we came to the 5th round, and Trevor Velasquez was sitting here. This is a player that I actually had my eyes on in the early rounds, but I never got a chance to scout him. He was listed as a potential 80 and an overall of 80, but I had never had any scouting in on him, and I assume that's because my scouts didn't actually uncover him. So I was like, you know what? He looks like he could have been really good. I'm assuming most teams were able to scout him because, you know, most teams are going to see an 80-80, and that's just going to by default be one of the first things that they scout. So maybe he's not necessarily an 80-80, but the potential is there for him to potentially be good in one of those two categories, whether it be his development or his overall, and that's what we actually got with him. So he's 23 years old, so on the older end of things here in the draft, but he comes in as a 73 overall, 77 potential. So the potential is low, but there's room for that to go up. What I really liked about this guy, he looks like he's not necessarily one of the very generic players that is in the draft class. And so when you get to these later rounds, I've heard a lot of people say that if you try to target players that have more realistic looking faces, more realistic looking appearances, and they don't look like super generic or weird or like alien type of players, then you have a better chance of getting a solid player. And, you know, he looks like a player that could be a legitimate player out there. So, you know, his profile picture is pretty solid, and I was like, you know what, let's go ahead and take a chance. 6'4", 73 overall coming in, and he's coming in with crazy good stamina. So we may need to adjust some, you know, ratings for some of these guys, like coming in with 90 stamina. That's just weird. The way that they randomize these ratings is a little bit odd, but he might be able to help us out in the relatively near future, even if it's just out of the bullpen. And then in the final round, we were able to pick up Ryan Rodriguez, and Rodriguez here is an interesting player because he is a 60 potential, 59 overall. But what I will say about him is his skill set may indicate a higher overall because he's listed as a catcher right now, and I was looking for catcher depth. I was looking between the various different players that were out there. I was like, okay, well, this guy actually has a relatively normal, you know, looking appearance. He doesn't look like one of those alien players, as we talked about, that are randomly generated. So maybe he's going to be good in some area. And he comes out as a 60 overall, but I decided to give him a contract. And the reason for that is if you look at his ratings in the top right, his individual ratings, he's got 69 contact versus right, 59 versus lefties, 70 vision, and he's got pretty good reaction and fielding. So there might be a different position for him that he could play pretty effectively at. I mean, we might be talking about a half decent first baseman or maybe another position or something like that outside of catcher that his overall could go up. So a very interesting draft class. I'm really excited about some of these guys. I'm very, very excited about guys like Cameron Castilla and Henry Cordero especially, and Trevor Velasquez, who may be able to be seen in the relatively near future for this team. Now, these names are potentially going to change, so as I did the last time, please leave your suggestions down in the comment section below for what we should name these players when we get to the off season and I actually have an opportunity to rename them. Please don't take any hard feelings if I don't choose the names that you guys list. I ultimately decide which names I like the best. Ultimately, this is a franchise mode that I'm playing, and I'm trying to just make this the most enjoyable thing for me and then bring it to you guys as something enjoyable for you guys to watch. So I'm not necessarily going to pick every single name out there, so please don't take offense to that, but keep in mind that if you do leave a pretty good name suggestion, something that may sound somewhat realistic or sounds pretty cool or sounds like a tough name or something like that, certainly leave that in the comment section below and I may pick it. So just wanted to put that asterisk in there that I may pick it, not 100% going to pick it, and I may come up with some names myself that I really like that I just utilize for these players as well. So I appreciate any feedback that you guys give me in the comment section, but nonetheless, let's go and get on to the next thing, which is going to be our roster moves. For our roster moves, we actually decided to pull off a couple of trades, and you guys will notice those pretty quickly when we go through the roster. Nothing has changed in the starting pitching room, but this is an area that I might consider making a large move whenever we come to the trade deadline. Quinn Priester's not quite ready yet. His ERA is still struggling. He hasn't progressed a ton down there in the minors. So we either need to go down and manually control him and try to get those things brought along, or we need to look for a trade. Maybe swap out JT Brubaker and send some good prospects for a top-end player to come into the rotation or something like that. But that's where we're at with the starting pitching rotation. Nothing has changed. We're getting good performances out of everybody pretty much except for JT Brubaker. Going on to our bullpen, we did add a player. I'm going to go ahead and flip over to the transactions page so you guys can see exactly what I traded in order to get James Karinchak. I believe I'm saying that correctly. I could be, I might not be. I was thinking I could really add another good bullpen arm to the squad here, and that's what I decided to do. I know that I do this a lot of the time. I try to stack up my bullpen, but when it comes down to it, he's 27 years old, he's an 82, he's an A. He's probably never going to hit the 90s, so I feel like this was maybe a little bit more of a realistic target for us to acquire, and with what we were giving up, we were helping out the team that we were getting it off of. So this should help us, continue to seal out games that we are in late in those games. So let's go over to the transaction page real quick and take a look at the trades that we were able to do, and we'll be able to take a look at the secondary trade that we were able to accomplish as well. Up there at the top, you guys will see we acquired closing pitcher Enrique Cuevas, who I've not shown you guys yet, and relief pitcher James Karinchak from the Guardians, who were desperately needing a second baseman, and we sent them over Michael Chavis and Dwayne Underwood Jr. Michael Chavis was a huge pickup for them. He was playing pretty well for us. He had a good amount of value. He's still young enough that he can develop as well, so he was a really good pickup for them, and we also tossed Dwayne Underwood Jr. over in return for him, and that might have been a trade that was a little bit of our favor, but they've been trying to get Michael Chavis off of us at second base for a while. So we were able to get Karinchak, who's a little bit less valuable as a player just as a whole, considering the positional difference. But then we were also able to get Enrique Cuevas, which, when we decided to do this, I said, you know what, there's no way that I can pass up a trade like this, getting a guy that is going to be a future arm that has really good velocity for our bullpen. So we were able to trade those two guys over. And then we were able to make another trade, and we'll get to that in a moment. So at catcher, nothing has changed here. Henry Davis has been playing absolutely lights out, batting .300 for us on the season. He's been very good defensively. He continues to progress for us, and Reese McGuire has not been doing so well this year, but he's going to be, limited playing time now that Henry Davis is all the way there, and he's not going to be getting quite as many at-bats or anything like that, which may lead to a little bit less success. First base, still the same between Mason Martin and Vogelbach. Vogelbach has not gotten enough time, but this is where things change. So you guys might remember we had Rougned Odor over here at second base. We decided to move on from Rougned Odor as well. He was getting his batting average up into the 230s, and he was really starting to hit bombs for us, but I decided instead Nick Gonzalez was ready to come up. He was batting in the high 200s, and it's just time. 79 overall B potential at 23 years old. It's just simply time to bring him along. I think that his bats are going to be good for us, and to be honest with you, what I really wanted to do was I wanted to bring somebody up at the shortstop or third base position because of our player fatigue across the board. We were really struggling with getting people into those positions to give Ke'Bryan Hayes a break or O'Neal Cruz a break, and I was like, you know what, I got two guys over there that I want to bring up, so I need to clear out some space. So if I want to bring up Nick Gonzalez and somebody else, let's go ahead, let's clear out Chavis, let's clear out Odor, and let's make it happen. So that was a big deal there, and I'll show you guys the trade for Odor in a moment. And then we decided not to bring up Marcano yet. He is playing really well down there in the minors, but at shortstop, we decided to finally give Cole Tucker the last shot. Now, this is going to be his last shot with the team. In real life, he was DFA'd and claimed by another team. I don't know exactly who, but in ours, we've been sticking with him. We've sent him down. We've given him opportunities to develop his bat. He's a 79 B potential now. I think that he's going to offer us some value. If he doesn't, we'll trade him or we'll DFA him, something of that nature. But ultimately, we are giving him a final shot here, and we needed the shortstop third base help. He can rotate over at those positions, and that's exactly what we needed him for. So this was a big adjustment in the correct direction. And then not too much else going on out here in the outfield. Johan Mieses is struggling a little bit right now. In center field, Reynolds is playing as well as ever. Travis Swaggerty is playing absolutely lights out. He's going nutty right now. And Anthony Alford is struggling a little bit, so he's cold at the moment. And in right field, we have Miguel Sano, who's been playing phenomenal, who I didn't adjust his overall for, but he did rob that home run, and I'm considering it. And then Andrew McCutchen, who has not been playing well for us. I've been considering releasing him or trading him. I just don't think that that's right after bringing him back. I think we stick with him. I think after he's done with this little injury that he's got right now, we try to utilize him and get his batting average up and get him to a point where he can help us contend for a title or something like that. And then eventually, maybe after this season, he retires or something like that. So I really like where this team is at, only only a few adjustments there, a few minor trades, and let's go ahead and take a look at the transaction log. So we traded Rougned Odor over to the Oakland A's, who are struggling for infield help, and he's going to be a big upgrade for them. We were able to get back in return left fielder Lazaro Armenteros, who is a really solid prospect. I really just like the looks of him. I thought he could be a very solid prospect for us. I know we're loaded at outfield, but I figured if I'm going to trade him for anything, I might as well trade him for a prospect that might be able to do something for us in the future. And it's really just a upgrade over Canaan Smith Najigba. I don't know exactly how to say that, but decided to trade him away. He's getting up there 24, 25 years old and hadn't done much for us in the minors. So it was basically a left field swap and giving them Odor. So they really won this trade more than anything. Let's go ahead and take a look at that player that we were able to acquire, though, out here in left field. We have not moved him around or anything yet, but he does look like a really solid player. More of a good fielder than anything, with a little bit of power. Lazaro Armenteros. I think he's going to be a solid player for us in the future. Young enough that he can compete with the other guys here on the roster, but that's pretty much what I have for you guys today. I'm not going to do any gameplay in today's video. Stay tuned for the next video. We will try to do maybe a little bit of gameplay or something like that, especially with some of the players that I mentioned. I really wanted to get you guys this update here so you guys could see where we're at with the franchise. I do hope that you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, leave a comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys as always in the next video, and I hope you have a good one.